Hello, welcome to the Inspired Ideas podcast. I am Diane Cunningham Ellis. I am very excited to be here with my friend, my coach, a fellow lover of Jesus. And we're going to be talking about business. We're going to be talking about what's called the blueprint. We're going to be talking a little bit about 1 hour funnel. I don't like that word, but that's okay. This is Cody's book, 1 hour funnel. And he is a father of 3 boys. He lives in Colorado Springs with his beautiful, talented wife, Christy. And I have watched him from afar, and then he dropped off the radar. I'd heard about him, and then he was gone. Then he was gone, and it all makes sense now because he went to work for a company. And then I'll let him tell the story, but he went to work for a company and then came back to Entrepreneurland in January of this year. And so, Cody, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll carry on with some questions and we'll just dive in.
Yeah, Diane, well, thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk to you. So I started my digital marketing journey in 2011 or 2012. I was doing digital marketing for a company. My first version of entrepreneurship is I quit that company in 2017 and went out on my own. I was mainly focused on Facebook ads, funnels, email marketing, and that went well. I saw quick success once I got out on my own. And I started to host events. I wrote a book that you just held up. I started a podcast in 2018. The book came out in 2018. In 2019, I started to host live events. It was the year before COVID. And at those events, I would bring people together, talk about marketing, and I launched a coaching program. And one of those coaching program students became my favorite coaching program student. And she always did what I said. She always implemented quickly. She always renewed when it was time for renewal. And we worked together for years. And in 2023, about a year ago, she and her company brought me out for some in-person consulting. And it was just as a consultant role in the marketing side, met with the whole marketing team, met with the whole sales team. And it went so well, they made me a really compelling job offer that it felt foolish to turn down at that time. So I took that job offer in June 2023 and started working there in the marketing and strategy. And the first 90 days were honeymoon phase. It was just great. I love you more. No, I love you more. No, I love you more. You hang up first. No, you hang up first. It was great. And then I don't know exactly what happened, but something happened about 3 months in. There was a shift that happened, and I started to feel more like I was on the hot seat at that company. And I can't quite pinpoint it. And I'm not saying I'm blameless or without fault, but I wasn't quite adapting to, I'd been on my own for 5 or 6 years. And now I was working with, they had about 50 people on their team. And I had 6 or 7 people on the marketing team. And I wasn't adapting well. That's a polite way of putting it. I wasn't used to all the Slack and all the Notion and all the meetings and stuff like that. So those last 90 days felt really weird. And on December 9th, 2 weeks before Christmas, I had a phone call with the owner, which I thought was an annual planning review phone call. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We got on Zoom just like this. And I remember his mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear. So I said, hey, like unmute yourself. And he was like, oh, sorry. And then he said, it's not working out. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting fired. Like a teenager, like I'm just being let go right before Christmas. I couldn't believe it. So that was disruptive and disappointing. I felt stupid because I didn't see it coming. In hindsight, I can look back and with wisdom and alacrity, like from a distance, look at it and go, oh, all right, the writing was on the wall. I should have seen it coming. But in that moment, I was embarrassed. I got fired. I felt dumb for not seeing it coming. And there's all these negative emotions. And spent most of December planning my reemergence back into entrepreneurship. Well, actually, I wasn't totally sure. Would I go get a job? So I looked at the job market. I liked the benefits that I had never had, but then I had benefits, then I lost benefits. Would I go back to entrepreneurship? And then in January, realized what a blessing it was to have that job because it did a couple things. Number one, it clarified the value I bring to the world, meaning I had let the old version of the business, the solopreneur business, it had become pretty tangled. It was a spaghetti bowl of offers and deliverables, and I just really complicated it a lot. I thought the answer to growing a business was do more stuff. So I just kept doing more stuff, more offers, more approaches, more lead magnets, more mini courses, more ad spend, more events, more virtual events. It was just so much stuff. And that wasn't the answer. So I had to shut all that down and pour out that bowl of spaghetti into the trash and say, this isn't going to make sense anymore. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity for those 6 months to have that job to clarify my offer. So when I came back into January, I had no obligations. I was in no Slack channels. I had no, Cody@Diane.com. I had none of your email address. I didn't have any obligations to anything. I didn't have to do anything. I had no meetings on the calendar. I had no deliverables that I owed anybody. I had nothing. And a lot of people in entrepreneur land I've seen, they sort of fantasize about that. Like, what would you do if you lost it all? Or what would you do if you had to start over? And I was living it all of a sudden. I was right there in the middle of it. And really grateful for that chance to work for that company. It allowed us to, put some money in the bank. It allowed us, I filmed a recent podcast episode. We had a ton of unexpected medical expenses in those 6 months. I think that our family of 5 went to the ER 4 times, and I had a minor surgery. We had never had insurance as traditional insurance as adults. And so there's some weird way of, what a blessing that was to have good insurance for 6 months. It probably saved us tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot, looking back, there's a lot to be grateful for. And to kind of turn that disappointment in December into opportunity in January. And now 7 months back, it's gone really well. Like I'm building back faster than first time, obviously, as you would expect. I'm a little more experienced. A couple of my faith-based friends, they kept reminding me, hey, stop saying you're starting over. That's not fair. It's not true. You're not starting over. It's like round 2 but it's the same game. You've been playing this game for a while. So don't act like you're all clueless on what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You just don't have clients or money or income or anything yet. You don't have a job. You don't have a revenue stream. And it's been an awesome year so far. So hosted events, got to speak a bunch on masterminds and podcasts and other people's membership sites. Hosted 4 mini workshops so far, which are little paid workshops I like to do. Started back up a private program, private behind the scenes newsletter, private behind the scenes podcast. And it's been a ton of fun. So that brings us to today, sitting here talking to you.
Well, every time I talk to you, there is a really great food analogy that happens. And so today we're on spaghetti. We've had some amazing conversations about potatoes before. And this brings me to, I love your story. I love your story. And that's what drew me towards you, is that vulnerability. And I got to hear you talk about it in person when you came to one of the masterminds I'm a part of. I'm in 3 masterminds. I know, like, oh my gosh, but we do what we need to do. And I know you're just as crazy as me like that. So, yeah, like, I love your story of faith. I love your message of what happens next. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I've had to restart too. I started over after losing my counseling career. I started over after getting sober with my alcoholism. And again, it wasn't starting over. There's a base, there's a foundation right there. I started over after selling my membership, my association. And I spent that whole first summer after I sold my association painting and doing all this art. And all of these things, when we believe, I know that nothing's wasted. I know that I'm not running late to my own miracle. Today's the miracle. Today's exactly, you and I are here right at the moment we need to be here. And that I can trust. I have to surrender and trust and, dive into the spaghetti bowl, so to speak. But also, I loved what you said about we can complicate it. We can complicate it. And so tell us a little bit more about that mindset of what happens next.
Yeah, it was tough. So December 9th is the day I got fired. I'll never forget that date. And in fact, this next December, I'm hosting an event, December 6th, 7th, and 8th, which is the last 3, a year later. I don't know. I like doing stuff like that. It's right around when I got fired. A year later, I can say that from stage. Like, look how much can happen in a year. So I knew 2 things. The day I got let go, my wife, knowing that I understand how social media works. I understand that, we need to get people to pay attention to us. And I knew that getting fired abruptly would be great fodder for social media. So my wife came in my office and pointed her finger in my face and said, do not do a Facebook Live today. Like, you're not allowed to go live the day you got let go. I was like, fine. So I did record an audio. I've never released it, but I have an audio on my hard drive of like what I was thinking through that day. But by the end of December 9th, I knew two things. Number one, I knew that we would be okay. Like, I'm wise enough to know this isn't the end of this book. This is like the halfway point or whatever. I don't know what point it is in the book, but it's not the end. Like, the Burch family story doesn't end on December 9th. I knew that. And I knew we would get through it. Like, I knew we'd be okay. I knew we'd get through it. And the second thing I learned was somebody else will benefit from this. Like, knowing that eventually I would be all right. I didn't know if it'd be a week or a month or 6 months or a year or longer, but other people would find hope in that story. You'd shared several times where you feel like your life was upset, thought we were doing something and something gets knocked off course. We thought we were going somewhere and had to take a detour. We thought we had momentum and then we had to pause the journey we were on. So I was aware of that. And then I remember that first week, I'm not needing any sympathy points, but I just had to suffer through it. Like, it was a really tough week. Like, I don't want to seem aloof and like, oh, I got fired on Friday, got a job on Saturday. Like, it was really hard and a lot of quiet time and a lot of meeting with friends. And I met with my pastor for the first time ever. This guy, his name's Daniel. He's dedicated all three of our kids. He's baptized two of my sons. Lord willing, he'll marry, my kids off someday. So I text Daniel, like, I need to meet. And I don't know what was going through his head because I've known him for, 20 years, but I've never reached out to say, let's have a meeting. So we met up in person and I was basically in the lobby on the way to his office. I was like, hey, good news. This meeting is only about the fact that I just lost my job. Like, kids are good, wife is good, marriage is good, my parents are good, like, everything's good. And so I met with him and had to just get through that. So I remember like a week later, I was like crying and laying on my bed again, like just having a pity party, just thinking like, man, this time will heal this, but today is a rough day. Like, just gotta get through this day. So that posture of curiosity of what happens next in this story, I started to transition that shame and guilt and fear into curiosity, almost like a screenwriter or an author of a story, to pick up the pen and write the next chapter, saying, well, we just agree this isn't the last chapter. So what's the next chapter going to be about? What is that marked by? What type of emotions and feelings? And yes, offers, income streams, revenue generating activities. What goes into that next? And then I started to, it's almost like I was watching my own movie play out. It wasn't like I was in it as much as it was I was above it. And not immediately, but within a few weeks. And by the time January rolled around, I saw myself as the author of my own story, which means I had to take responsibility for what happened when I got let go. It wasn't their fault. I don't have any hard feelings towards that company. I'm responsible for that happening, which is a tough thing to admit, but it's so empowering because you realize if I'm the sole responsible person for that bad thing happening, the good news is I'm also the sole responsible person for rewriting this script and rewriting this new chapter. So that was the posture I took. I started to document that journey. For me, I posted every Saturday. I would post on Facebook and just say, hey, here's what happened this week. And I just called it Cody ReBuilds a Business. Mm-hmm. People started to really pay attention to it like a soap opera, and people were commenting, I'm loving this journey. I'm following this journey. This is the best thing on the internet. This is the best thing I'm reading every week. Like, just documenting what's going on and what I did that week, what I didn't do. I've done that in the past with my old podcast was called Cody Builds a Business, and it was documenting the journey of starting an information-based business with courses, books, mini courses, live events, coaching, masterminds, and stuff. So it was in my DNA to think, I know that that's true. Like, people will want to see what happens next in this story. So I documented that via a post every week. I made it to week 16, which is about when the live event was starting to happen, and said, hey, this is the last week. I'm going to update on Facebook, this like 1,000-word update. But, you can follow along, like join my email list or come to my events or, hang out somewhere. I'm not going to keep documenting the journey there. But that was the posture, that posture of curiosity, the posture of understanding I'm 100% responsible for my actions, for the outcomes that I can create. And I don't mean that in a godless way. Like, that's a factor as well. But I just took radical responsibility, radical ownership of that job not working out, which was so comforting, that saying I'm in the driver's seat now of this rebuilding. I don't have to wait for someone to come save me. There's no government program that's going to come dig me out of this hole. There's no SWAT team that's going to crash in through my windows in my basement and rescue me from this plight that I've gotten myself into. I'm the one that's going to build this back. So then no shame, no judgment, no fear.
Yeah.
And started getting back to work.
Yeah. Radical acceptance. and radical surrender and just that next chapter. And it was that storytelling that you were doing that then prompted you to do the first workshop I came to with you, was Story Magnet Workshop. And I was on there, and I remember distinctly, I came part of the first one, and I'd never done any of your programs before, right? But I'd heard about you from, and this is how it works out in the world. We hear about somebody, we're listening to the podcast, and then we send the link to 5 friends or whatever. And so I was on your Story Magnet Workshop, driving to Waco to go to a women's retreat, I'm like on the Zoom and driving and trying not to, crash on 35 and whatever. But just like taking screenshots of almost, like I shouldn't be telling the story, but it's all about the story, right? It's all about the story. And that's part of my story. I was driving to my women's AA retreat, and like listening and just having all of these light bulbs go off. And that was the culmination of what you were just doing with you were telling us the story. We got to come to be a part of it. We got to see you rebuild. And then I wanted to know more of the story, right? I wanted to know more of the story, which then brought me to be willing, when you put it out, greatest event ever. Cody's really, in case you're new to Cody, he's hilarious. And it's that quiet, funny, and he remembers everything. Like, he knows the name of my car. Go ahead and say it.
You put me on fancy. I was gonna say Foxy, but that's wrong. Fancy.
Yes, he knows the name of my car, and it's spelled with a PH. Don't even ask. But yes, fancy. But like, that's the kind of person that I want in my world, that actually listens, that is in the story with us. And so when he put out the greatest event ever.com or whatever it was that what it was? Greatesteventever.com?
Yeah.
I went running over to the website page and was like, wait a minute, is there a zero missing? Because it was $249 for this 2.5 day beautiful event. I said, where is the other zero? There has to be another zero missing, but there wasn't. And so I'm pretty sure I was one of the first ones to sign up, and then looked at the plane tickets and was like, oh my gosh, I am totally going to this thing. And, a bunch of us from my other places, well, a few, because you didn't sell out, but there was 14 people in the room. And we got to be a real, as you've taught recently, be a family. The night before the event, as you already know the story, 3 of us that were coming out of the 14 got into a car accident. We got hit by a semi we got hit by a semi on the way to go eat dinner in Colorado Springs. And I felt comfortable enough with you. I'm calling Cody from the side of the road, crying, and I don't even know what I was saying, but we felt supported. That's what I'm trying to say. I felt like you would have come if we needed you to come, you would have come. And we felt seen, safe, and supported the next 2.5 days to kind of process through this experience that we had just been in, which is now a story. So I love your storytelling. I love what you're teaching me and my friends about storytelling. And I know you're now doing that in a program called the Blueprint. So tell us how you launched the Blueprint. I know it's pretty new, but tell us a little bit about the Blueprint and what you're doing behind the scenes to kind of invite us in.
Yeah, the Blueprint, I've had an offer like this before. So rewind the clock a little bit. So my wife has a luxury event planning business. So COVID was very disruptive to her business. In the event planning world, she was booked out for 18 months to 24 months. So her 2020 was looking great. Her 2021 was looking great. Big hotel contracts, big, really stable revenue. It was awesome. She was just cranking. And we would joke, why don't you just shut down the digital marketing agency, Cody, and come work for me over here at the event company. So when COVID hit overnight, she had to cancel event contracts, including my own. I had an event for June 2020 on the books. cancel hotel contracts, get out of stuff, understand what I don't know how to pronounce it, but like force majeure, it's a French word, but an act of God like happened. And now we had to cancel all these events. So it was really sad to watch her, through no fault of her own, lose her entire business. So now our kids are out of school. She's involuntarily homeschooling our kids. And so we started to pivot her in-person event hosting company to a virtual event company. She didn't want to do that, but I said, luckily for you, I know how to do all this. I can set up your ads. I can set up the whole funnel. I can make your logo and your branding. I can do the entire thing. And I thought, I bet some people would want to watch me build this from scratch. An interesting premise. Can this so-called digital marketing expert launch a new brand to the world, but he can't use his face, he can't use his list, he can't use his influence? And my wife, Christy, she had nothing. She had no followers, no fans, no email list, no nothing. She was just behind the scenes, boutique, high touch, white glove, Louis Vuitton event planner. So she sold tickets to her founding member launch, I think for $100. And I sold tickets to watching me build her business for, I think, $50 or $100. So by the time her little course launched, she had made $2,000, but I had made over 10,000 by selling tickets to watching me build her course. So the deliverable then, I didn't call it any, I don't know if I called it something like course launch coaching or something like that. I gave it some weird name. But all I would do was every day send out an email with a video of what I did that day. So if you gave me $50 or whatever I was charging, $100, I would send you just get on my daily email list. I think I put it in a members area too. So if you joined on day 11, you could go back and watch day 1 through 10. And I promoted it for about a month. And it was so fun. And so I thought that was a fun experiment. It had a start date and an end date. I just wanted to document me launching her course. And so I find so many people now, digital marketing seems like this black box. It's this monster in the closet. It's this rumbling under the bed. It's, Facebook ads, funnels, online marketing, turning strangers into customers. It feels like this Aladdin's magical lamp. It feels like this mythical creature, Loch Ness monster kind of thing. And nobody's ever done it before, and they've heard about it. And I thought, that's not true at all. I've taken very common people with no following, including my wife. You can't get less of a following than she had. And I've grown their email list automatically. I've gotten them sales. This year I've been doing VIP days. I've done like 40 or 45 of them, just a 1-day kind of intensive digital marketing day. I bet 10 of those included me building a digital marketing list building machine. And by the end of the day, I flipped the switch and it was on.
Yeah.
So now I've got, a dozen or so people that said, I've never gotten a lead off the internet ever, to I've got 687 leads in the last 2 months. Wow. One lady sent me a DM and said, I don't know why she wanted to get to 1,000 leads. I don't know why she wanted to stop, but she messaged me and said, I've gotten to my 1,000 leads and now turn the ads off. And I thought, I don't agree with that philosophically. I think you leave the ads on. But she said, now I've got 1,000 people to shepherd and steward, and I'm going to sell them stuff. I was like, great. So in my head, this little milestone of how many people can I get to 1,000 leads without a lot of fuss. And that's some of the work you and I are doing together, Diane, is you're like, I don't really want to learn how this works. I want this like black box turned on, built and turned on. And then I don't want to have to mess with it. Like that's what I like to do. That's my unique point on the internet. I like to help people do that. I call it laid back list building. But I thought people might value how that's all going. Like this, again, this fly on the wall, voyeuristic. They liked reading my weekly updates about what I was doing in the business. I wonder if I can just slap a price tag on that and let them follow along while I'm building stuff. So coming up soon, like in the next 30 days, hopefully, I'm launching a new free Facebook group. I'm launching another public podcast, not a private paid podcast. I'm doing a paid 4-day challenge, and I'm going to enroll people into a high ticket 12-week accelerator, Lord willing. Like that's a lot of stuff, but in the next 30 days. So people in the blueprint, they get to watch all that stuff. So they get a little bit of training. It's not really a content-led thing. Like it's not a course to go through, but they get a weekly newsletter. They get a weekly private podcast where I dissect what I did that month, what worked, what didn't work, what revenue came in. I have 4 income streams in my business. So every month I do a deep dive on where did those sales come from? How did I get them? What expenses this month? What did I invest in? What did I spend on Facebook ads? So for people who are really curious about what really goes into what I have this lean, profitable solopreneur business. I don't have a team and I have no intention of having a team. That's not a recommendation. That's just, I've been around the block a few times. I've had a team. I've not had a team. I'm building this thing back with no team.
Yeah.
So for people that are curious, how does that all work? What decisions do you make? How do you evaluate opportunities? How do you launch your stuff? How do you that is launch debriefs in there. One is how I launched the blueprint.
Yeah.
So as I was building it, I was just recording my screen.
Nice.
And then I've recorded how I sent out the first email. I recorded when the sales came in, the order bumps and upsells. And there's a launch debrief of a workshop I did with my wife called the Profitable Small Events Workshop. So next up, as I launch this free group, there'll be a debrief in there under the launch debrief section of how did I launch that? So for people that want to launch a free group and build a community, how does Cody do it? What did that look like? What did he call it? How did he set it up? How did he get the first people in there? What is in there when they got in there? Why would they join? What's the incentive structure? How does he turn free community into customers? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to be documenting I don't know what'll happen. I know how to do it, but I'm just documenting the whole process. So it's kind of like one of those, HGTV shows. Somebody's remodeling a house and there's a camera turned on and they're just documenting, here's what I did. Here's how I picked out the backsplash. Here's how we chose the color palette. Here's how we bumped out that wall and made this enclosed patio. And you're going to see it when it's done. So that's what's going on in the blueprint. In essence, in one sentence, it's a private weekly newsletter via email. It's a private weekly podcast, a monthly Q&A. There's a little members area. I'm going to add, I haven't added this yet, so you're the first to hear about it. Breaking news here on your podcast. I'm going to add a discount on courses. Like if you're in the blueprint, which is just $7 a month, I'll allow you to save a percentage on like mini workshops. I don't know what, but it'll be more than $7. So if anybody ever wants to buy anything from me ever, they should first join the blueprint and go get a coupon and then go buy the $27 mini workshop or whatever. You'll save money. So that's what I'm trying to do. And for me, it also builds recurring revenue because it's a monthly subscription that people are paying. And it also holds me accountable because I don't know about you, Diane, but I'm as good as I am at digital marketing. I'm kidding. I still get stuck and I still get distracted and I'll find some excuse why today's the day I need to rearrange the books on my bookshelf and not launch a product. So now I know there's dozens of people, not hundreds yet, in the blueprint. In my imagination, I've got French doors on my office, like right behind this camera. It's like they're all standing out there, like looking in, like, what's he doing today? And I don't want to say nothing like, oh, he didn't show up today. There's an out of office, or not a day, but a week. So it's been fun. I love it. It demystifies and defangs digital marketing, shows people it's not that scary after all.
Yeah. And so is that link on tell them how to find that if they're listening? Where do they go to sign up?
You have to go to codyburch.com/blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
You can check it out. codyburch.com/blueprint. Okay,
perfect. And I know Cody also sends so I'm a member of the blueprint. I'm excited because, I love to see the behind the scenes. I think we all do. It's like, back in the old days, if there was a fire down the street, me and my dad's like, come on, we have to go in the car and go look. Right. But we all want to know. I want to know. Like, so Saturday morning, I was having a panic attack about the 5-day challenge I'm about to do. Not an official panic attack, just an entrepreneurial experience. We'll call it that. And I was rambling at Cody and a few other people. But the magic is Cody sent an email. He sends a daily email to his list. And it took me an act of God to get on the email list because I was somehow blacklisted, but we have recovered. We are okay. And so he sent an email. He didn't call me out specifically, but I was like, oh, that's about me. So definitely you're going to want to sign up for this daily email because this daily email, at first you think, oh my gosh, who wants an email every day? But there's a couple of you that I get daily emails from. And they're really good. They're really good. And I look for them and I actually open them and I read them. And I'm glad I clicked on this one because, we all want to hear all about ourselves, right? But it was more about that it's going to be messy behind the scenes. It's messy when you're making spaghetti. And, there's 100 ways to have spaghetti. Just like there's 100 ways to eat potatoes, which is, the story you were telling me one day. And it's okay for me to do it my way, you to do it your way, and for us to just say, okay, what happens next? It's all a part of the blueprint. It's all a part of the story. And it's fun to see because sometimes we just look out there on the World Wide Web and think, wow, I'm not doing this right. And who am I? And why are they, 20 years younger than me and 50 yards ahead of me? but again, I come back to, this is my calling. This is your calling. We are doing what, because I mean, we're doing what God's asked us to do. And I coach Christian women. I mean, I know you coach all different types of people, but like specifically, that's why this is the podcast name is Inspired Ideas. My entire business is an inspired idea that has just taken a variety of forms, just like yours has. And it will continue. It will continue. And so I know you and I could go on and on and on. Anything that you want to leave our listeners with about anything you want to leave the listeners with today?
Yeah, I share your idea that we're called to serve people. I feel like we have our ideas for a reason. I feel like they're God-given. I don't like our ideas to help people. For my wife to start an events company, for you to start the Christian Women's Entrepreneurial Association, for you to all the offers and stuff that we have. I don't think they just fall on our head when we're walking down the street one day like an acorn. I think that they're God-given. Since I believe that, I think if we're not helping people, then that's selfish.
Mm-hmm.
If we think that God's called us to serve people, and we're not going to serve those people with our ideas by playing small, by not sending an email, by not creating an offer, by not starting that community, by not starting that podcast or that YouTube channel, by not posting on social media, I think that that's selfish to keep our ideas to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very much passionate. I have a lot of passion about people expressing their ideas however they see fit. In my world, it's Facebook ads and emails. That's the main way that I express my ideas to the world. But it's leaning into that calling to serve other people and to help other people. So it's not that if we're playing small or we're not posting or we're not publishing, it's not that we're being, cute or shy or whatever. It's that we're being selfish and we're keeping those ideas to ourselves. So it'd be like, walking down, we go hiking here in Colorado, it'd be like hiking on a trail. And I had, thousands of liters of water in my backpack, and you pass somebody, dying of heat exhaustion, asking for water. And you're like, nah, I'm just going to keep walking. We need to help people with the gifts and the talents that we've been awarded and gifted. And we need to be a good steward of those ideas to help other people on their journey have less pain, have more comfort, have more clarity. And so whatever you're sitting on, a lot of people have an idea or a half-built bridge. They go, someday I'm going to start a podcast. So they kind of do, they get the microphone, they get some artwork. Maybe they set it up and they post an intro and they never post a full episode or something. It's a half-built bridge. It doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
I was on a training a few years ago and this stuck out to me. The guy giving the training, he said that a half-built bridge, it's not worthless. It's worse than worthless, which I don't know how you go lower than worse than worthless. And what he meant was, if you build a full bridge, like let's say you fully launch a podcast or you fully launch a Facebook ad funnel, you can then learn. Like if it works, great. If it doesn't work, you learn the lesson.
Right.
But a half-built bridge is worse than worthless because you don't even get the benefit of learning if it would have worked, if it would have helped somebody. And that was something I saw this year as I was posting on Facebook every Saturday. I don't mean to sound naive, but I was just shocked. I always, I post on Facebook, but it's usually jokes or memes or a dad joke or something. So a picture of my kids, like it's the usual Facebook stuff. So I'm posting business updates and people were commenting, this is the best thing on the internet. This is my favorite thing. I'm loving following this journey. One lady, when it really clicked for me that our stories matter and our stories have power, I posted my normal update. The story was about right after I got fired, my wife's favorite composer, John Williams, who's composed like every awesome movie ever, Harry Potter and Jaws and Star Wars, like this amazing composer. Our local orchestra was playing his music, and it was right around her birthday, which is in March. But I had just gotten fired and tickets were like $100. And so on faith, I went ahead and bought the tickets to surprise her for her birthday. And we went to that concert in March when our finances had stabilized. Luckily, we just kind of bought the tickets in faith. And I was telling that story, like do something in the future to work towards, to strive towards, to build towards. So I told that story, hit publish, grabbed my youngest son, Ben, went to the movies. I think we were watching Top Gun for the 7th time or whatever. While Ben and I are waiting in line for concessions, I was just checking my phone real quick. And a lady had posted, I'm summarizing obviously, but she had said, I didn't know who she was. Her name looked kind of familiar, but she wasn't like a close friend. She just said, I have a terminal illness.
Mm,
And what you posted about is something I never do, because why would I book a movie ticket for tomorrow or a concert for 6 months from now if I don't know if I'm going to be sick or even alive? And she
mm,
said, I'm not building a business like you talk about, but I'm building a life.
yeah.
So thanks for sharing your story or something. And I'm like, waiting to pay $40 for a popcorn and Pepsi Zero. I'm like, crying in the concession line, checking my phone. I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, just by showing up consistently, telling a little bit of my story, walking through the progress points I'm making, the setbacks, definitely there's always setbacks,
Mhm.
was giving people hope.
Yeah.
And that's when I felt like, Lord, I'm not equipped to do this. Like, I don't know what to do with this, but I don't feel equipped for this part. I thought I was going to be a digital marketing guy.
Mhm.
1 hour funnel 2.0. I'll just be better funnel, better ads, better whatever. And there was a deeper purpose. There was a deeper calling that started to become apparent through the storytelling aspect. And so when you and I connected in the Story Magnet Workshop, and that took off. If you want to check that out, go to storymagnetworkshop.com. I teach 7 story structures that'll make your marketing more effective. I was so nervous to teach that. I was not nervous to teach how to host events or how to write an ad or how to launch a funnel, but teaching storytelling felt really beyond me. So anyways, half-built bridges, worse than worthless. Tell your story, press in, build the bridge to completion, because you owe it to the people that you feel called to serve to get out there and show up for them consistently.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. So definitely go check out Cody. He's got you covered, and grab one of the workshops. I'm going to just suggest you join the blueprint so you get the coupon code that's coming soon. Anyway, Cody, thank you so much for your generosity coming on my podcast, and I am just grateful for you in my life.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Whoops.